Check, check 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Wireless mic test. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
Testing. Now, if I just leave it away from.
Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. We'll get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome. We are going to start off with the approval of the minutes for the Tuesday, July 26th, Tuesday, August 9th, and Tuesday, August 9th, both the work and regular sessions. If there's no discussion, these will pass via unanimous consent. Any discussion? Okay, so moved. We are going to go into an executive session for legal and personnel. It should be short, we hope. Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome back. We had an executive session, like I said, for legal and personnel. No action was taken. We are now at committee reports. We'll start off with finance and operations. Do we have a representative to
You do.
report? Thank you.
Tis I. Some of the projects, the track project is 95% complete and they're ready to do the lines. That is waiting for just enough dry spell to get them on there. Parking lots for the schools in town are 100% complete. Lines are painted. SRU 100% done. And I was let know that the 15-mile-an-hour signs have been installed. The dishwasher, we're just waiting on one part. As soon as that comes in, they're going to have it ready. It will be ready by school. The equipment has not yet been delivered for the playground, but should be by the end of this month, and it will be installed as soon as it arrives. We're not going to wait to set up installment after it arrives. The vans are on order, but we do not have a delivery date as of now. The junior high baseball field behind here project will start tomorrow. For the junior high soccer, we have a new scoreboard, solar powered, installed and running in the soccer field. All of our building summer projects are complete and ready for students. All of our fields are lined and ready. The lighting here in the row is 90% complete and all of the fixtures are ready for installment and the asbestos abatement is done at the high school. The other thing we have is we're working on, for security, some estimates on buzzers on all exterior doors, as well as more exterior cameras, and looking into having every door fob access. And the fobs can be programmed or deprogrammed per access of each individual, and they can be deprogrammed instantaneously if necessary. The outdoor pavilion is done, and the outside of the building has been power washed. Busy.
Yes. And Roe, just being here, Roe looks wonderful. The lockers look great. The building looks wonderful. Thank you. Personnel and policy.
I'll be reporting out tonight. We have continued with our review of a number of policies as we're working our way through. This evening, we reviewed policy 004 on membership. Let me see them. We've got some that are for second read, so I'm going to start with the ones that were on our first read. So 004 on membership, which relates to board membership, and then we had also policy 114 on gifted education, 115 on career and technical education, 116 on tutoring, 220 on student expression and dissemination of materials, 227 on controlled substance paraphernalia, and 827 on conflict of interest. Those were all up for first reads this evening. Some of them have pretty straightforward edits that we are recommending and will bring forward for second read at next month. And there were two of those 004 on membership and 827 that actually just had new PSBA updates. And we believe those actually can be moved to just voting tonight. It was updates around really board transparency and board procedure with regards to filling board positions if for instance, someone is on active military duty or things like that. So we would recommend that we move 004 and 827 to the vote this evening, if possible. The other policies that we looked at for second read, and I apologize because it is a long list, was 011, principles for governance, 117 on homebound instruction, 119 on current events, 218 on student discipline, and 237 on electronic devices. Those were all second reads. They look good. We had no other changes or comments, so we believe those are ready for vote this evening. I think that's everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. Curriculum, instruction, and technology.
Yeah, I'll report on that this evening. Two items to cover. First, Mr. Toscano reviewed with the committee the 21-22 state assessment data, covering both the PSSAs as well as Keystone results. Generally speaking, the trends are what we expect. No real surprises, although always room for improvement. The state scores still have not come out yet, so we can't quite do comparisons at this point as far as how we compare to other schools throughout the state. That data will be shared with the rest of the board here in the near future. Secondly, tomorrow is new teacher induction, and we approved several new teachers last week. We'll be approving some more tonight as well. I believe we have at least 10 or so new teachers who will be participating in that induction tomorrow. That concludes the report.
Thank you. Extracurricular activities. Mr. Rude.
We are starting to share data and information with North Rome Christian about a possible co-op of certain sports there. It's just the preliminary data being shared right now. We did not receive any additional requests from SARE for co-op of winter sports. So we'll only be doing swimming in the winter. The fall sports have begun and Pivot is transitioning to in-season strength training. That concludes the report.
Okay, thank you. We are on to superintendent items and reports. Mr. Stage. I almost said Mr. Stage.
Thank you, President. Chair Chernovsky, your choice. I'll keep it relatively brief and full of gratitude. I met with my administrative team in about November of last year, and I set a goal. And the goal was to have the majority of our facilities and ready to go for the start of the school year by August 12th. And that included having classrooms ready for teachers and their technology ready. So kudos to Jeff Schrader, his staff, Clint Nichols and his staff. Friday afternoon, we were able to send out a message to all staff that their classrooms were ready and their technology was ready to go, with the exception of one or two pieces total. It's an impressive feat to allow those teachers time to get in and be prepared and not have the stress of making sure that their classrooms are ready facility-wise and to make sure their technology is working. If you look around our campus, not just here at Rowe, but through all of our campus buildings, SRU, you'll notice that we did some remarkable facility upgrades, while not costly, but definitely worthy. And in an effort to make our facilities more welcoming, safe, and more focused on learning. We want our kids in here and we want them enjoying their time while they're in our halls. We want our staff to feel safe and supported. That was an incredible effort by all of our contractors. And there's a list way too long to thank, but I want to thank all those people that met their deadlines and their obligations. And again, Clint and Jeff for their work. The administrators have been working throughout the summer setting goals, getting themselves ready to welcome back students and staff. And I want to thank them for their diligent work. I think we're very excited to see friendly faces come next week. So with that being said, it's an incredible honor that we get to open up our school year next week and serve such a wonderful community. And thank you for this time, President.
Thank you, Mr. Stage. Blast IU 17, we do not have a representative. Northern Tier Career Center, Mr. Owen.
And nothing to report again tonight, but the next meeting is this Thursday, so I'll have a report in September.
Excellent. Mr. Jones, PSBA.
I don't have anything to report.
Okay, thank you. Solicitors report, Mr. Barrett.
I have nothing. I have a couple matters I talked to the school board about in executive session that concern litigation. Thank you.
Thank you. We're up to visitor comments. These are for board action items only. Please give your name, address, organization which you represent, and subject matter. It is requested that comments be kept to 3 minutes. Comments relative to private student or employee matters should be directed to the superintendent outside of the meeting. Do we have any visitor comments on board action items only? And the podium is right back there. Sorry, no podium. The microphone is back there. Mr. Nason.
All right. Good evening, Jeff Nason, 716 South Main Street. Just wanted to speak. I see on the agenda that you're going to be voting on potentially offering a co-op for all sports to Sayre in the 24-25 season, and then also approaching them about doing a tuition based for all 9 through 12 also in that year. And Mr. Stage, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you had said that you wanted to have the board possibly approach the consultants about studying the viability of that in their reports. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would simply like to say, I think to vote on whether or not to do both of those before the consultants have even had an opportunity to evaluate might be a bad idea. Because you don't know, there's a lot of questions that we don't know the answer to. And there's a lot of moving pieces that need to be put together to make this work. And the consultants may discover hurdles that can't be overcome. And if you've already voted to say, yes, let's do the co-op, it may be agreements that you can't get out of easily with unforeseen problems that crop up. And I also believe that it'd be important for those consultants to look at the athletics at the junior high and the elementary level. I know the elementary are not associated with the school, but since my oldest son has been in the Little Cats football program, that program has grown leaps and bounds to where now there's over 100 kids participating. And I think that needs to be evaluated, because if we have that many numbers in our elementary and we consider co-oping with Sayre, that could be that many more that we would have to accommodate, whether it be coaching or maybe there has to be additional cuts. And, you know, we don't know what the size of Sayre's program. They may have enough coming up that they could have football. But if we enter into a co-op now, we're taking two schools, combining it into one, we're cutting the opportunities in half for them to participate. So, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Mr. Nason, I appreciate your comments. If you mind, I want to hopefully be able to offer an opinion on your request. And I do think that this board could look at both of those requests simultaneously. The planning for a potential agreement where we would absorb some of the students from Sayre would take a couple of years to plan. I do think that the feasibility report would come out well in advance, that if it came out with overwhelming response that didn't seem like it would be a viable option, that I think both the Sayre and Athens school boards could reconvene and maybe put an end to that conversation. I do think it's a worthy effort to continue to plan no matter what the outcome is, just based on the track record of mergers and the possibility of mergers throughout the state of Pennsylvania, or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania at this time. So just my thoughts on it. These people, they have to vote their way, and I have no opinion on how they vote, and I trust them. So, thank you, though. I think it's a valid point, very valid.
Mrs. Nason.
All right. Mary Nason, South Main Street. Looking at the co-op thing, I had one of my seniors last year, one of my private students. He was one of the few co-ops for the soccer program. Said the Athens team was very nice. The coaches were great. Some of his big concerns that he had was he didn't have his license at that point. He didn't have a car. He was at the mercy of the other two guys who drove to get him here. So my concerns as far as a co-op of sports would be, one, Sayre needs to provide transportation for their kids. Two, they need to be financially responsible. They need to chip in. We've got a lot of expenses. There's going to be a lot more equipment. There's got more field time, referees, the whole 9 yards. The third thing is, and this was one of the things that my student brought up, Sayre has a different dismissal time. He missed a lot more class time, and he was also late to practice. The coaches understood that he was late because of school, but he's already traveling 10 minutes. And if our kids, track gets out at 2 o'clock, they lose about a period and a half. at most. The Sarah kids are going to lose 2.5. That's a lot of instruction time. So I think these are three things that before we even go to Sarah and say, hey, would you like to jump on board here, that they need to be agreeing with. Otherwise, I equate it to an open marriage. All of the perks, none of the responsibility. So I think that Sarah needs to be held accountable if they're going to do a full-on sports co-op. And again, I said last week about like our junior high girls numbers. I know we weren't talking junior high co-op, although I believe, if I understand from my Sarah families, there is a co-op for junior high boys soccer. So we are doing some junior high co-ops. And like I said last week, we've got enough girls. I already know some of my students have said they're going to quit softball because they know moving up, there is no room right now on the varsity squad for 3 junior high teams worth of girls. So they're looking at going back to strictly ASA or switching to track. And we're going to see, track's a great opportunity. Everybody gets to participate, but most sports aren't like that. And again, with wrestling, if you can have a team of one guy, he gets to participate. He gets to wrestle every single match. So I really think that throwing everything into one isn't the greatest solution. But ultimately, if we're going to look at a co-op, Sarah has to be held accountable and they have to have some responsibilities.
So can I just interject?
Mhm.
So we do charge Sarah for the sports that they do participate in.
Okay.
And they have paid.
They have to.
Okay, so it's just the transportation
Yeah.
and the bell schedule, because really, if we're looking at what's best for the kids, we all know. I know band is last period here, and that takes a real hit come spring concert, because a lot of the band were in track and field this year.
Yep.
And I know Mr. Wagman and I talked about it, and so it's hard. And if they're going to be missing, and if we're saying what's best for all the kids of the Valley, I really think putting the sports without the contingent of the academics is wrong also. I think it should be student athletes, so it should be a contingent. We'll co-op all the sports if your kids are going to get the same academic, not you can do sports without the academics.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other visitor comments? Okay, if there's no other visitor comments, we'll move forward to financials. Do I have a motion and a second to bring financials up to vote and for discussion first?
So move.
Second.
Okay, these are a listing of bills, general fund checks, cafeteria bills, secretary's report, and earned income tax report. Any discussion on that? If not, Christine?
Mr. Charismaski?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? Mrs. Minnick? Mr. Owen?
Yes.
Mr. Rude?
Yes.
Mrs. Smart?
Yes.
And Ms. Braun?
Yes.
Okay, we are now up to personnel. Do I have a motion and a second to bring up personnel for discussion?
Lisa Braun, so moved. Second.
Okay. I would like to pull and vote separately on A and B and vote on C separately, please. If that's okay with everybody. Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll start off with A and B first. Christine, go ahead.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick?
Yes.
Mr. Owen?
Yes.
Mr. Rude?
Yes.
Mrs. Smart?
Yes.
Ms. Braun?
Yes.
And Mr. Charismaski?
Yes. So now we'll vote on C separately. Go ahead.
Mr. Frisbee?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Abstain.
Mrs. Minnick?
Yes.
Mr. Owen?
Yes.
Mr. Rude?
Yes.
Mrs. Smart?
Yes.
Ms. Braun?
Yes.
Mr. Charismaski?
I abstain.
And Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Okay, number 9, contracts and agreements. Do I have a motion and a second to bring this to the table?
So moved.
Second.
This is the Empire Access Internet Service Contract for the upcoming school year and the SRO agreement with Athens Borough and the school district. Any discussion on this?
Yeah, so for the SRO agreement summary here, right, this is a 5-year contract we're adding one extra day per week for 5-day coverage for an SRO, correct?
For the township.
Yes, sir.
No, this is the borough.
This is the borough.
Yeah,
This is the borough for the high school.
Yes, correct, sorry.
Yes, sir, Mr. Owen. That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Paid by grant money, correct?
The majority of this is through our PCD safety and school safety grant that covers the majority of this cost. Yep.
Thank you.
Is the Empire contract the primary internet source, or is this the secondary?
This is the secondary source, mainly due to SRU. District-wide secondary source. I didn't know if we have a fiber line separate that goes to SRU.
Phone service backup if the primary goes down, which has happened a couple times.
Yeah.
A year due to squirrels and things like that.
Yes, and it really is squirrels.
Have we looked at the Starlink for out there?
Starlink. No, we have not. But we can always check. Yeah.
This connection would actually be here at the high school and provide for the entire district.
Yeah, that's our phone hub right here in high school. Right, correct.
Any other discussion? Good questions. Okay, Christine.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Rude,
Yes.
Mrs. Smart,
Yes.
Ms. Braun,
Yes.
Mr. Charles-Nowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
and Mr. Frisbee.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Up next is number 10, policies. Do I have a motion and a second to bring this up?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, these are all those policies, A through L. Some of them are the second read. Some of them are first read. Are there any discussions or questions on these?
Mr. Chair's-Nowski, I think
Yes.
that the committee wanted to move 004 and 827 to final read. I think that was the only thing that I think,
Correct.
and I think that's okay to do.
That's okay to do. We have to amend the agenda for that, or?
004 and 827 final.
I think it's okay since it's already.
As long as you have unanimous consent, I won't make you go through that suspending of policy.
Thank you.
routine.
Any objection?
Any objections? Just if you could make that note, Christine, on that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, when you're ready.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Rude,
Yes.
Mrs. Smart,
Yes.
Ms. Braun,
Yes.
Mr. Charles-Nowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
and Mr. Jones.
Yes.
There is no curriculum instruction at this time. Transportation, number 12. Do I have a motion and second to bring this to the table?
Lisa Braun, so moved.
Second.
These are the, I believe, final cost from last year, right, Jenny? From last year's final cost. And then the van bus driver list for this upcoming school year. Any discussions on that?
On the final costs, it was about 1.9 million actual. What was budgeted?
I'll get back to you.
Okay.
I didn't do the budget last year, so I don't know.
Oh, I'm just curious how much we buried on that. Thank you, Jenny.
One thing we do want to point out is that a percentage of that will be reimbursed by the state.
Mhm.
Right.
And that depends on our formula. And can't give you a specific number. It could be anywhere between 60 to 80% of that could be reimbursed, maybe
Okay.
higher. It all depends on the age of the vehicles, the miles driven, things like that.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, when you're ready, Christine.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Rude,
Yes.
Mrs. Smart,
Yes.
Ms. Braun,
Yes.
Mr. Charles-Nowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
and Mrs. Minnick.
Yes.
And not to interrupt, but it looks like from the paperwork that was provided, it looks like it was about 2 million was budgeted last year.
Oh, was that in there? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chris.
it's just under.
So just about the same.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, number 13, there are no building and ground items. Number 14, other, added from our last meeting. Do I have a motion and second to bring these to the table?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, these are A, to present a formal request to the Sarah School District for a comprehensive athletic co-op to begin 24-25 school year. Present a formal request to the Sarah School District for tuition-based enrollment for grades 9 through 12 to begin the 24-25 school year. And C, to formally request the Sarah School District to participate and commit 50% of the financial commitment to Part B of the RFPs collected relating to the viability and feasibility of a school merger. Any discussion on these items?
I just, on A,
Okay,
it's to develop the plan properly, correct? Request to, if they're going to request a co-op, we'll be developing a plan also, like after that, right? Like it's all sports and girls and boys and.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mrs. Cooper, I think the most important aspect of requesting at the beginning and the 24-25 school year is that would be within the correct cycle. So that none of our co-ops, if they had to move classification status or anything like that, there would be no penalty.
And this is also to have it by June
Yeah,
of
what's our hard
2023,
deadline?
correct? The
Yeah.
deadline of June, not October, correct?
So we would need,
Altering our deadline.
yeah, so in the request, I think it would also be important to ask for their full numbers, enrollment numbers and agreement by June 30th, so that we can have those submitted in the correct timeline, which is those numbers, our enrollment numbers have to be submitted to the PIAA prior to October 1st. So we would expect a deadline of June 30th to provide those numbers.
of 2023.
Of 2023, yeah. And I'll make that very clear once I write that request, which will be sent out before the campus.
Now, is that going to be binding? Are they going to be able to pull out, back out?
So no comment.
When we say comprehensive, does that mean all sports? Is this like an all or nothing, or is part of this agreement that we're going to sit down as two schools and agree to which sports will be included and which ones will not?
My intent, Mr. Owen, was comprehensive means all sports, not piecemeal. If that's the intent, I think that, we've experienced, and so has Sarah, periodic ebbs and flows and last minute requests. And if we're going to think long-term, then let's just think long-term and look at all sports. Skin in the game on both ends, I think, an adjustment for both districts as well. It gives us time to make those preparations. And then to Mr. Nason's point, I think he brought up a great point about the youth programs. I think there should be another conversation with youth programs in the Valley of looking to bring themselves together as well.
And that
We have been piecemealing, and this is the to put a stop to it. I mean, it's constantly every season.
Well, I think overall, when you look at a comprehensive plan, if you're planning for all right, we're talking about opportunities for all. Let's just provide that opportunity. We have very stable numbers. We can handle the flux of some students. I think that would be a great opportunity for.
And this would make a lot of sense, obviously, as well with the proposal on B. So, I mean, if their students are coming to Athens, it would make sense that as of 2024, they would all be playing sports together as well. And doing, band and, all those curriculums.
Yeah, I definitely believe that once we maybe get Sarah to commit, and then again, we're asking that they can simply say no too, right?
But then if they do say no, we don't have to address this again, correct?
Well, that's the board's prerogative, of course.
We can't guarantee that, Kathy.
No, I'm sorry.
Unfortunately.
But I think to go to Mr. Nason's point too, like I said, if we agree to say, yes, we're putting this out there and then it's not like legally binding, like if say, okay, we've decided that this is not going to work. I mean,
I think
whatever the
tough-
verbiage is in the formal write-up to them.
I think
know.
what Mr. Stage is trying to do is get a plan going, so that way the numbers,
Nothing-
there's no
right.
penalties for
Right.
anybody. So there's still going to be a lot of discussions,
Sure.
with this. It's not set in stone.
Yes,
Um,
this is not voting yes or no to do it. It's just to,
Just proposing to see
it's-
if there's an interest, basically. If they say
And-
no, then it's a no.
And
moot
obviously
point.
with cross-country, there's obviously those avenues where they can still pull out for that as well.
Sure.
So that's where I think we're trying to get that plan going ahead,
Sure.
being again proactive.
So it just to share, and you guys can tell me to shut up. I think oftentimes when we bring these solutions up, they're very emotionally driven, right? They're in the now, they're in the moment, and they're thinking about immediate. If we plan ahead, we can have an opportunity to remove the emotion, plan collaboratively for what the future holds, and maybe develop a solution for any of the barriers that we see. In the past, right, just to give a history lesson, we did accept at the last minute last year a co-op with our boys and girls soccer programs. I do want to point out that a co-op was already agreed to between SARE and Northeast Bradford last year. And then Northeast Bradford learned that they would face the same postseason ban that we would have faced this year with football, right? The only reason why we were able to make that co-op happen at the last minute is because we elect voluntarily to play up a classification level. So that was where we didn't receive any penalty for that. I don't want in the future emotion to get involved and opportunities to be missed. And if we plan for 2 years out, we can bridge some of those, right? It's a little bit of skin in the game for both districts. I think to Mr. and Mrs. Nason's point, you know, our kids are going to face a more competitive opportunity for on-field time, but we also offer every sport. We offer a variety of sports, and maybe we can encourage students to participate in more than one sport, or maybe develop an interest in other sports. We also have a bevy of extracurricular activities outside of sports that we also can interest our students in. And I do agree that in that conversation, we should talk about those collaborative groups like band and other things like that. So I do think that this is a general start of a bigger conversation. And I do think I would expect a commitment, because I don't want to have a situation where we have committed to something and then at the last minute something backs out. And again, we say yes tonight, it doesn't mean Sarah says no at their September board meeting or whenever they vote again.
Any other discussion?
So I would suggest, Craig, and sort of goes to what Mr. Nason was recommending earlier. I think however we word the note, I think we want to make it clear that something can come out from the feasibility study that may influence the decision one way or another. So maybe that's in the note that we just say, this is all going to be, we want to get a head start on it now, but we realize that the feasibility study may reinforce or, you know, or otherwise, right? Negate, right?
I can add that to any part of that
Yeah.
proposal, although I will tell you, I certainly hope that if we do get a feasibility study, it doesn't hinge on athletics.
I would agree. I would agree. Yep.
Good points. Any other discussions? Okay, Christine, when you're ready.
Mr. Rude,
Yes.
Mrs. Smart,
Yes.
Ms. Braun,
Yes.
Mr. Jarzynowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
yes.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
and Mr. Owen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That is all of them. Now we are for visitor comments. These does not have to be on board action items. Please give your name, address, organization that you represent, and subject matter. It's required that the comments be kept to 3 minutes. Comments relative to private student or employee matters should be directed to the superintendent outside of this meeting. Do we have any visitor comments at this time? Okay. Board communications. We have our Title I interdistrict agreement on here. We have board discussion items that we added from August 9th. We're going to request a formal presentation from Alloy 5 and Hunt Engineering to include the viability of a complete school merger between Athens and Sayre. Mr. Stage and I did meet with Mr. Quattrini and Dr. Delosio, and if they do vote yes on this at one of their board meetings, we will have a board retreat between board members. And the presentations will be there, and then we will follow suit with sharing that out with the public then. Once that goes, but we will have a board retreat between the two board members, two board groups, if that happens. Other than that, any other board discussion items to discuss?
For that retreat, any idea of a possible time frame? Everything in like early fall
I think we didn't
sometime?
want to put a time frame, Mr. Owen, because we don't know when they're going to vote on it. If
Okay.
they, obviously, we're going to send a formal request now. Mr. Stage will do that tonight, probably. Send a formal request, and it'll be on them now.
Okay.
And then once they approve, we'll set up that time frame of when that retreat will be.
Mr. Owen, to your statement as well, I have been in contact with the points of contact for both Alloy 5, McClure, and Hunt Engineers in the Pennsylvania Economic League, and they are aware that we're going to be in contact with them to present a full presentation so that there's a Q&A period involved. I did let them know that it could involve both boards or singly, just us, and it depended on the outcome of our request to the Say Area School District. We are looking at all dates. Probably would be late September, mid-October. And it could include a weekday, a weeknight, or a weekend such as Sunday afternoon. So we really will try to be as flexible as possible, because I do know that there's a tremendous amount of family commitments, especially in the fall, for a lot of us that have children and relatives that are doing a lot of things. So we're gonna really make that happen.
The one thing Mr. Stage and I did tell them, though, that we were going to follow through with this feasibility study with or without them. We'd really like them to be a part of this, though. We want them to be a part of it, but we are going through with this to make sure that we're getting the facts.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
Any other discussions? If not, our next meeting is Tuesday, September 13th at the admin office at 7. That's a work session. The regular session will be Tuesday, September 20th at Lynch Buston at 7 o'clock. There is no need for an executive session. Do I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Or
Second.
Mr. Frisbee moved.
Good luck to the start of your school year, everyone.